Hey guys, and welcome to Crusher Convo, where we are crushing the conversation one episode at a time. I am so stoked for this topic as I sit down with Tim from FSF Popcast to discuss Gates McFadden's new roles in the comic universe. So, welcome, Tim, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. And I just want to point out real quick that I'm so glad that you had that countdown on your screen so that the people at home wouldn't be like come in to like me white boy dancing in my chair here to your intro music. They didn't get to see that. I probably saved you a couple subs there. So there you go.
Oh, okay. I enjoyed it. It got me dancing a little bit. I was like, oh, okay.
I was like, oh, that's kind of catchy. All right.
It's a nice little dance party going on. Yeah. I always have fun with that countdown that I made, but sometimes I haven't synced it right with the live. So I'll press live and then turn it on. And so you miss like the first couple of shots. And I'm like, I gotta figure this out. But
Yeah.
that's just boring podcasting issues that we have to go through.
Stupid buttons not working when I want them to.
I know. I actually had some issues with my ending. So I'll turn it on and and it doesn't end the stream. And so like all of a sudden you see a last second of like us going like blank faces before
Yeah.
it shuts. Yeah. I'm like, oh no.
I've done that a
But
few times
anyways,
myself.
yeah. But anyways, we have definitely are going to have fun with this topic. As everyone knows, I mean, Tim is a nerd, right? He knows his comics, he knows his stuff. I mean, what is it? So let me see if we get my video here. All nerdy, no dirty. All right. So definitely excited about this topic. I am a huge X-Men fan, as you can see with my shirt. So when I heard that Gates McFadden got to be on X-Men, I lost my mind, but we'll get that in a second. So first, I'm going ahead to discuss her voice work. So she's done a few things these last few years, especially in the 90s. She was definitely doing the video games. She was, of course, on Prodigy as Beverly Crusher, and it was awesome. She did the Star Trek Very Short Treks, which was very disgusting, but I sat through it and got through it for her sake. She also was a 911 operator in a TV series called Scary Endings. She was, of course, Queen Marlena in the He-Man Masters of the Universe Revolution. That is a mouthful, but she wasn't the only one that was in He-Man. There was also William Shatner. There was John Delancey. There was Tony Todd. We also had Meg Foster, which I am a fan, and she was on DS9 in the episode Muse. But I know her as Hera from Xena, so I grew up with Meg. And of course, Star Wars, legend, Mark Hamill. So that's very exciting. It was just a star-studded cast, but I really want to talk about her role as Mother Ascani in X-Men.
We have no quarrel with you.
You're a long way from Crest Coast, Sapien Cast.
My name is Jean Grey. This is my husband, Scott Summers.
You may call me Mother Ascani, leader of Clan Ascani.
I sense no need to be afraid.
Nathan. Come.
Can I just say real quick, that background music, I loved the music. I kept replaying it just for the music alone. It was so awesome. So how was your reaction when you broke the news to me so that I wouldn't pass out when I watched it. So thank you for the warning. It was greatly appreciated.
Well, I wanted you to be able to enjoy the episode, not as a puddle on the floor,
Exactly, right? But what was your reaction? Did you go like, wait, I know that voice?
A little bit, yeah, because now for those who don't know, I'm not the world's biggest Star Trek fan. As much as Jesse is here. I enjoy Star Trek. Let's not get this twisted. I watch it. I enjoy it. So there are times when I hear different voices and I go, that sounds real. And that's why I went looking in this, because as soon as I heard her voice, I was like, that sounds really familiar. So I waited for the credits because I wanted to see who it was. I was like, who's playing Mother Ascani? That voice sounds really familiar. And I was like, and as soon as it said Gates McFadden, I was like, oh, that's why. Okay.
That's why.
I know that voice. I'm like, I knew that voice.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, I think I was pretty good because I try really hard not to be the guy that gives spoilers. I think all I told you was that she was in the episode. I don't think I told you where or how or.
You didn't say who she was or what. I think you
Okay,
said
good.
something of the effect of, like, the Bev heads are gonna love it or something like that,
Okay,
and that's what
good.
I was all like, "Wait a second, what? What?" Now, she did mention in a convention last year that she was doing a Marvel project,
Right.
okay? So, we already kinda had an idea that she was gonna be doing. We were well, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I was really hoping it was gonna be X-Men. So when you mentioned that, I was all like, yeah, because I'm, like, watching every episode, like, "Okay, is she gonna be in this one? I don't know what's gonna happen." And, I mentioned this before, and I think you were part of the joke when Picard season 3 was out, and there was that image of her and Picard, and it was all like, Charles Xavier went to the future to help,
Right.
older
Yeah.
rogue. And, that's where it got me excited. I was like, man, she would be awesome in some kind of comic. It didn't have to be X-Men, but some kind of comic, something Marvel, DC, it didn't really matter. But yeah, when I saw that, I was so stoked. Have you been an X-Men fan for a long time? Are you just a casual fan?
When I was a kid, I was much more of an X-Men fan than I was probably in my 20s or 30s because things kind of dissipated for a while. There was
Mhm.
like this great expanse of not having X-Men,
Right.
other than comics. And
Mhm.
by the time I was in my early 20s, early to mid 20s, I had a couple kids. I was working full time. I was not reading the comics as much as I did when I was younger. That
Right.
being said, Wolverine has always been my favorite member of the X-Men. He still is, um, which made my interview with Cal Dodd like even more exciting for me because that was the voice of Wolverine when I was growing up. That he
Mhm.
is still the voice of Wolverine in X-Men 97. And
Mhm.
and so all these different things. And so I loved the original animated series. I loved X-Men 97. It was so beautiful and soul crushing all at the same time. Just
Tell me about
yeah.
it.
A couple of those episodes needed to come with an emotional damage warning. Uh
Right. Sign a
but
legal document, like,
right, if you'd
you
like to
cannot
watch
sue
this,
us at the end of this
yeah,
episode.
yeah, tears will be shed. Are you okay with this? Please digital consent.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, so I was excited, growing up, having read the comic books, going from that, playing the video games, reading the comics, going to the animated series, and then transitioning from the animated series to the live action, the
Mhm.
first iterations of the X-Men movies with Hugh Jackman and everyone. Um, yeah, those were always kind of a big deal to me, and I still uh want to say thank you to Eric and Julia Lewald, who without them we probably would not have uh, X-Men live action of any kind.
Right.
Because if without them we wouldn't have gotten the animated series. Without them we wouldn't have what we have today. And so yeah, it
Mhm.
just yeah, that's always X-Men have always been kind of there. It's not a I don't know how to best phrase this because it's certainly not a guilty pleasure, but they've always been outside of Star Wars. Star Wars is life to me. If everybody hasn't watch my show. Star Wars, I eat and breathe Star Wars on a daily basis. It
There's
is,
an IV hiding,
yeah,
where the
it's
camera where it says
it's
Star Wars, that's
my
in his
coffee
IV
cup
drip.
is Darth Vader. I mean, um, and most of the Funko Pops behind me are Star Wars,
Yeah.
but almost secondarily to them has been X-Men, and
Mhm.
so I don't know as much of the lore and things when it comes to X-Men as I probably should because
Right.
I went from a place of in my teenage years, I could have told you, oh, this person's related to that person, this person, but when you stop reading the comics after a certain point, it's kind of hard to jump back into them because
Yeah.
some of the you have to kind of like just pick a point and jump back
Mhm.
in because some of the comics they get a little Doctor Who-ish. They're a little timey wimey, wibbly wobbly.
Wibbly
Uh,
wobbly, yeah. Yeah,
and so you
for
just kind of
sure.
go, I'm going to stick the landing here, and I'm going to move forward from there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so
Well,
that's what you
especially
got to
because
do.
comics tend to like branch out into different
Sure.
sections, right? So there'll be one, and then it'll be, this topic and this one and this one. They
Right.
all connect it some way, but they're telling a story in a different way. Like currently, we're getting all this new Star Trek comics, and right now we have like one's called Blood and Bones or something. There's another one's called Defiant. And they all
Right.
connect in the same story, but they're all branching out in different sections. So that was kind of my issue growing up. I couldn't really keep up with the comic books, but when X-Men came out as an animated series, so it was like from what, 92 to 97, right?
95,
Um,
97.
yeah, I was 7 years old when it came out, and when it stopped, I was like 12. So it was very important to me, and it was something that my mom really enjoyed, and my brother. My brother's a huge X-Men fan. He used to have those giant action figures of all of them, by the way, every
Mhm.
single one. And Gambit was his favorite. And I remember I wasn't allowed to touch him, and so I used to touch him when he was at work, and he never knew.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things that we bonded over, especially because the stories were really, really good. I mean, we had 2 parakeets that we named Phoenix and Saga. And it was just one of those things that we just enjoyed. So when the movies came out, I was super stoked. And of course, I wasn't into Star Trek. I didn't know Star Trek very well. So I didn't know who Patrick Stewart was in
Mhm.
that context. But he was born to play Charles Xavier, just like Hugh Jackman was born to play Wolverine. Like all of
Yeah.
these actors came and delivered, and Storm and Rogue were my favorites. The only thing that I was upset about when it came to the movies was the Rogue storyline. I don't think that they really delivered it as well as they did in the animated series.
Not even
So
close.
yeah, not even close. And of course, Gambit wasn't in it at all. And so
Yeah,
there
that
were
sucked.
hits. Yeah, there was really good hits and a lot of misses. And of course, we don't talk about the third one. Like that
There's a
one
third
doesn't
one?
exist. Yeah.
There's the
It's
third
just
one?
it
It's like
they
with,
sent it off temporal
X-Men's
anomaly.
Wolverine or his origin movie. I have some struggles with that as well, mainly because
Mhm.
what they freaking did to Deadpool. I can't talk about that because my blood pressure up. But I mean, like Gambit's in that movie, but there's not enough of them, and I'm like, there needs to be more.
Yeah.
It needs to be just give me a Gambit movie. God dang it! But
Something. Yeah.
yeah,
Which I think in 97, don't watch episode 5, but I think in a sense they did Gambit. It still hurts. I don't know
that may
about
be
you, but
the
it still hurts.
that's the emotional damage you need to give digital
Yes,
consent.
exactly. We at least got Gambit, and he kicked butt, and he was
They
just
crushed it. They really did.
they
They,
did. And
his
they're following that storyline because I think they're following that whole, the 4 horsemen, obviously,
yeah.
which in the comic books, Gambit is going to be death. Now, that does lead me to a question that I have for you. So, talking about X-Men, talking about, you said you love Star Wars, but what was your favorite comic growing up?
Um. So, there was a character and this has nothing to do with Star Wars or X-Men or anything along those lines. It was a character for Dark Horse Comics, and I want to say his name was Nighthawk. Um,
That sounds familiar.
and um, I'm typing this into Google because yeah. No, that's Marvel Comics. I'm thinking of the wrong person. I got to look that up again. But there was a guy. One of my buddies was Nighthawk's basically Marvel's Batman. One of the people
Mhm.
that was Marvel's Batman, depending on if you believe that. Anyway,
That's a whole other
that's a
topic.
whole other topic. But I got to look
Yeah.
this up real quick. But there was a guy that was pretty similar to Nighthawk, or at least in the name. But he was and I feel really bad for not remembering his name, but like I'd go over to my buddy's house and I'd have my X-Men comics, and he would always have these Dark Horse comics that I wasn't allowed to buy. And
So that's why
And
you went
so
to
I
your
would-
friend's house.
I would go to my friend's house to read that particular story.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Dark Horse comics back in the 90s were really rather like a revelation to me, because yeah, I would just get into it, and this one guy, and this is really bugging me that I can't figure it out. I'm actually on a Wikipedia page at the moment, going down through the list.
Trying to find it, trying to do it.
I
Well,
gotta
as-
try to find this because it's driving me nuts, and that I can't
I
remember.
think I
this
broke
guy's name.
Tim. I'm so sorry, guys.
You did. You
we're-
broke the nerd.
I broke him.
Because
well, as you're looking for your favorite comic, I'll chime in a little bit real fast. So
yeah, please take
one
the
of
heat
the
off me.
things that one of the things that I did love about the comic books is one of the first superheroes that I got into was Superman. And that was because my uncle was a very huge fan of Superman. So I know the lore, I know the movies. My favorite
Okay.
documentary was the Superman one that came out. I even have like that whole collection that has it. And I just really enjoyed, but the comics that I actually really liked was Spider-Man. I don't
Okay.
know what it was. Maybe because he was a kid and he was a nerd and he was kind of an outcast. Like he was just one of those like, oh, that could be me, right? I could have gotten bit by a spider and this could happen to me at one point. And I did love to take photos. So I was all like, yeah, this is great. But like you said earlier, it was hard to keep track with the comics. So there was a lot that I missed and then I just couldn't figure it out. So thank you, World Wide Web, for helping me, keep track about how all these stories lined up. And that's kind of how I learned about Mother Ascani, because I wasn't into the comics at that time when they were doing the whole Rachel Summers series. And then, of course, the alternate timelines, which is where she's from, and then her becoming in the clan and everything. And so, but I at least knew how important this character was. So when Gates came out and did her voice, I was all like, oh dear, here we go. Season 2. Come on. Let's go. Let's get it. And even when I had Josh for my Star Wars episode and you were in the chat, you guys were saying like, this might be the little nudge to do that live action that we've been hoping for, especially after Deadpool and everything like that. So yeah, that would be mine. Did you figure out? Did you find your?
No, and I'll find it later after we're done, and I'll be pissed then, more than I am now.
And we'll Instagram it. We'll put it on Twitter. It's fine.
I will find it. But yeah. It was because I feel really bad because it might not even have been Dark Horse. That's the thing. I just have to find
Don't
it.
you just love it when your childhood memories merge 5 different things all at once?
Yeah. Oh goodness, I feel really bad for not knowing this.
I feel bad putting you on the spot.
No, it's fine. It's a good test for my brain.
That is true.
Which apparently needs some help.
Yeah.
Not saying the brain is broken, but apparently the brain is broken.
It's just a little broken.
It's just a smidge. But
okay,
yeah.
So here, we have a hello from John. And here's Kathleen. That's what happens when you get old. Your memories get blurry.
Kathleen is the little sister
Kathleen,
I never
for
wanted,
keeping it real.
But somehow ended up with.
She's keeping it real. She's keeping you on your toes. That's what she's there for.
Something.
Oh my goodness. Now, so this actually brings me on to my
Any for your thoughts?
Here we go, guys. So here was my question for everybody, and I got a couple answers from people. What character do you want Gates to play when it comes to doing voiceover work? I feel like she's picked up a lot more in her voiceover work these last few years, and she
Mhm.
just has that great unique voice, which is probably why a lot of people love her podcast, which we'll talk a little bit later. But I think this is just a really good, and she's done audiobooks. Like she's done a bunch of Star Trek books, and she did Brent Spiner's book, which is hilarious, guys. If you have not read fan fiction, listen to the audiobook. It's fantastic. I cannot, it's just amazing story. Um, Real quick before I get into our choices for what we would like to see Gates. So John goes, "Yeah, we all know that Tim's brain is broken."
You felt that.
And Kathleen goes, "You didn't want me, but the universe said, 'Here, take this. We don't want it.'"
It's like the cat distribution system. The cat just kind of shows up at your house and you have to take it. Kathleen was part of the little sister distribution program. So
That's basically how it worked out, right?
that's how it worked out. And
Oh my
ta-da, here she
goodness.
is.
Here
God,
she is. So
I love her. She's just
Kathleen is
Kathleen.
awesome. We love you, Kathleen. But here was my choice. I think Poison Ivy.
Interesting.
And the reason being is because I've really want to see Gates be a villain. We've kind of seen little smidgets of her being a villain in a couple of movies or like short movies. And I feel like Poison Ivy really has not gotten her due. We have seen her a lot in the comics, but I don't think her character has ever been utilized in a way that we've seen more with like Harley Quinn or even Catwoman, right? And she's a very interesting character. And I feel like if they were to go back into the animated Batman series and things like that, I think Gates could do a very, very delicious version of Poison Ivy. The only thing that I don't like about a couple of these characters, and even Danny from her podcast, comic cosmetic and comic and cosmetics, there we go, I could say this, she was talking about Harley Quinn, and the one thing is about their obsession with the boy, right? So of course Poison Ivy has a crush on Batman, but then she tries to kill him, and there's this whole like that whole thing. And I'm just like, I really just want to see a badass female villain, just like, I'm just doing my thing and no one can stop me. So that was kind of my decision about it. And but yeah, I think Gates would be awesome with that one. But let's show
I think she's got
go
the
ahead.
voice quality for it.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. She did this short movie called Finger where she did like a southern accent and stuff like that, but she was very creepy,
Okay.
and it was just it kept you engaged. And of course at the very end it's like, oh my gosh, and she just walked away. Like it was just very well done. It
Okay.
was intense. Yeah. So let me show everyone your choice. Lois Lane.
Yeah, I thought that she'd be a cool choice as Lois Lane because now I'm banking this off a couple episodes in particular of
Mhm.
Star Trek. And one of them is the one that I did for your show the last time I was on. Um
The Neutral
and
Zone.
the Neutral Zone episode, yeah. And
Mhm.
I loved her. She had these great little snarky comebacks, and I was like, well, that's who Lois Lane is. She's a no nonsense. I get the job done, you know, professional, all these different things, but she's also got some great witty, snarky comebacks. And I thought that based on a couple of different episodes and a couple of things that I've seen Gates play, as Beverly Crusher,
Mhm.
I thought she would, pardon the pun, crush it as Lois Lane
Right.
because there's some similarities in the two personalities.
Oh
It's
yeah.
both are very strong, independent women, able to do what they need to do in a man's environment, so to speak. Um, they they don't take any crap off anybody, and they're going to get the job done. And along the way, there's going to be some great one-liners, some zingers, and it could be entertaining. And so I just thought, boy, she would do really well in that role as in an animated setting where she's doing the voiceover for it. I thought, boy, that'd be a great pick for her. And the other reason why I picked her is because I was pretty sure you were going to pick somebody else, so I didn't pick that other person.
Did I not pick what you thought?
No, I did not see Poison Ivy coming, not even a little bit. Um,
Okay, so I'm curious.
I thought you were going to pick Rogue from X-Men. I thought,
That's too obvious. And then, of course, no one can top Lorraine. Is it? I'm always getting confused with names for some reason. But like the one that does the voice of Rogue. Sorry,
oh,
Zahn.
yeah,
Lorraine
Lenore
Zahn
Zahn.
or something.
Lenore
Lenore
Zahn.
Zahn. There we go. So no one can top her. I love Gates.
No.
Don't get me wrong.
No,
but
no,
she's Rogue.
I thought about that because
Mhm.
there's only Lenore says sugar the way that Lenore says sugar. And that's like the only Cal Dodd says, bub, like Cal Dodd says bub.
Yeah. Right.
However, I was thinking about this in alternate timelines because again, a little wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Mhm.
I thought if you were to play an older version of Rogue,
Okay.
that Gates would be a good fit there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not
I could
not
see
not
that.
the younger version of Rogue that we have where we have Lenore voicing her, but
Right.
maybe an older version.
But I think for me, Gates would do wonderful as a live action versus the voiceover. That's why that image where we saw Beverly and Picard and they were like I could see that happening, right? I could see that going forward. Now, real fast. So Kathleen says, I love you all too. We love you. John says, if there is ever a live action or animated version of the ISB director Hussein Isard, I hope I'm saying that correctly, in the Star Wars universe, I think Gates would do a wonderful job.
Yeah. You should probably look up her name and see the images of her. Because she would.
She
She'd
would.
crush it. Yeah.
She would crush it.
I mean, because she's a redhead, with a couple of silver streaks in her hair,
Right.
and yeah,
Which I feel like that's what
visually,
they did with Queen Marlena. Like they
yeah,
added the silver streaks. I was like, that's for Gates.
yeah,
But now to kind of go back to your Lois Lane pick, we've had a lot, and that's an understatement, live versions of Lois Lane. So of course, the very first would be Noelle Neal, and then Phyllis Coates, and then we had Margot Kidder and Terry Hatcher, and of course Erica Durance, and Katie Bosworth, Amy Adams, and then recently it's Bitsy Tulloch, right? Which I haven't gotten into. I need to, but we've had a lot of different versions.
She's the one in Lois and Superman, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And she also did Grimm, which is what I know her from.
Right.
What is interesting, they all brought their own different versions of Lois Lane, right? Now, of course, Noelle Neal started it all when it came to the live action, and then everyone kind of did their own version of it. And of course, my version that I absolutely adore and love to death is Margot Kidder's, because that's what I grew up with.
Absolutely.
But how would you think that Gates would fit into that mold? Not, of course, not live action, but just how they've kind of paved the way of how Lois is, or even the voice actors that have done all the animated series and even the recent ones that have come out.
Well, I think that any actor who's going to take on a role that's iconic, and this is an iconic role,
right?
You have to know that you're going to be compared to anyone who's done it beforehand. So whether live action or animated, you're going to be compared to people who came before you in some form or fashion. And I think with that in mind, you have to be willing to just say, you know what, I'm going to take this on my way. I'm going to do it my way, because I think I think unless you're doing a voice match, unless she was coming in to do a voice match for somebody else, I think the mistake would be to try to make herself a Margot Kidder or make herself an Amy Adams or make herself
Mhm.
somebody else. I think one of the strengths of any actor who is being put into a position like this is that they have to come in and just be that person. You can't be
Right.
anything like the, and I look at the different Spider-Man that we've had, even through, you've got Tobey Maguire and you've got Andrew Garfield and you've got Tom Holland.
Mhm.
They're all three play Spider-Man very differently, but they're all Spider-Man. And we love
Right.
each one of them for different reasons and the way that they present them. And so I think it's the same when it comes to Gates in this instance. I think if she were to do it, I would want her to take her own take at it, her own run at it.
Mhm.
And I
Own
think that,
approach.
yeah, because I think that it would do herself a disservice, because she is such a good actor,
Mhm.
to try and be something that somebody else has already done. And I think that with her unique set of skills would give us a different Lois than what we've ever had before.
Yeah.
It would be almost, because, and this is no slight to any of the actresses who have come before her,
Mhm.
but I something about Gates and the way that she performs Beverly Crusher, there's an air of, there's a dignity and a professionalism in the way that she carries out that role. And I
Right.
think that there would be, that is something that we really haven't seen in a Lois Lane. I think honestly the one that was probably the closest to showing a professional side of it was probably, in my opinion, Amy Adams. Um, you know,
Mhm.
there was enough other issues with the Batman versus Superman movies and some other things there in the Snyderverse,
Right.
but I thought that she did a really good job of being an out of the character, or out of the mold, for that character.
Mhm.
She didn't have brunette hair. She was a redhead. All these things that were different than what we think about when we see Lois Lane. And so she
Mhm.
took a different approach. And I would like to see that same type of different approach from Gates in this instance,
Right.
if she were able to do it.
If she was a yeah, and I think also Erica Durance did a good job because they did such a different version with Superman's story in Smallville,
Yeah.
right? Because it was before the cape, it was before that
Yeah.
time in his life, it was about Clark. So to add Lois into that story, uh, prior to him becoming Superman, Erica basically had to do a whole different version. It was it's an alternate universe kind of thing. And I think she played it well of being that snarky, like you said, like how Beverly was in the neutral zone, where she had those snarky comments and she had those comebacks and she was able to be all like, much obliged after she got, her little butt tapped, we don't like to talk about, but there was those, there was just those incidences where she just did it and she just went with it. Now, it goes back to just how well, in my opinion, I mean, it was 5 seconds, but for Mother Ascani, um, I mentioned this before. I'm pretty sure Gates has not read an X-Men comic, just like Patrick had no idea who Charles Xavier was, but they're
Right.
like, "This is the character," and she's like, "I got this, no problem." And she delivered even in those 5 lines that she had, and you got excited and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen in season 2? Like, how is this Rachel Summers and with Nathan and everything gonna play out?" And of course, they kinda made the character kinda look like Gates a little bit, like with the hair and and
Mhm.
I like when animators tend to put a little bit of the actor in the character, right?
Oh yeah, for
So,
sure. It
yeah, because it
personalizes it,
just
makes
makes
it.
it yeah, it does, and it also makes it more realistic, especially when you hear the voice, so, like, the voice matches
Mhm.
the face. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Gates would do wonderful in anything she does, even if she doesn't know the history of a background of any character. She'll just be like, "Sure, I got this. I'll do it this way." And I know her being with the background of being a director and even a professor and how she runs things, I'm sure she really took her time to make sure
Mhm.
those 5 lines were going to be out of the ballpark. Now,
Well,
Kathleen has said something real fast that I'm like, yes. She says, I want Gates to just show up in Doctor Who somewhere. Yes. Okay. I've been saying this forever. I was like, Wesley is a traveler and he does time and space. And they already mentioned in this last Doctor Who that he's like, we got to go visit them sometimes. Please, please, Russell T. Davis, Stephen Moffat. I don't care.
figure out a
Just
way to make it happen.
go find, and instead of Star Trek Legacy, let them just pop up over on the Enterprise G with Captain Seven and Rafi and Jack, and then all of a sudden Beverly's visiting her son, whatever. And then there's the 15th Doctor with Ruby, and I mean, I would love that. I love crossovers, and that would just be a dream of mine.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun, I think. I agree.
I think so. Anything could happen on Doctor Who.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the point of having it be timey, wibbly wobbly, timely wimey. You got things that get to jump around like that. It's more fun for everybody.
Exactly. So I did get a couple of responses from my penny for your thought. So CW Unfiltered did say that she thought Catwoman. Thought Gates would do a good job as Catwoman. And then Kristen said Wonder Woman, which I could totally see. I really could. And I think it's just because Wonder Woman, like a Clark Kent, was kind of playing, that one-sided, very quiet, very and then all of a sudden she's just this, badass character. So
I'm looking up at my wall of Funkos to see if there's another character that I think that she might be good at.
That
and you guys can't see them all. There's a whole nother wall of Funkos over here I'm looking at.
I remember I think you showed me a picture where it was like a continuation of that wall. I got one, and I just bought this, and this is like my only Funko of Princess Leia.
Ooh.
And it came with the t-shirt.
I don't have that one.
And
I don't have that one.
You
have one that I don't.
It was at Target. I don't mean to I'm not sponsored by Target, guys, but
I gotta go to Target more often.
You never know what you might find. I just happened to be
honestly,
there, and I was like,
you held up that Princess Leia. She would do a wonderful. She would do a wonderful General Leia Organa, the older version of Leia.
Yeah.
She'd be phenomenal at that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's
phenomenal.
I think because my heart is Carrie all the way, but since we don't have Carrie anymore, and if they were to do an animated series to kind of continue after with, let's say before The Force Awakens, right? Yeah, I think she would crush it.
Leia's another one that has had so many different voices be her voice. I just off the top of my head, there's Julie Dolan, Anna Graves, there's Misty, who I can't remember her last name right now, and there's at least two others that I could. Shelby Young has voiced her, and at least two others that have voiced her. So for me, and with all due respect to Carrie, because Carrie is Carrie. But in order for that character to live on, if they're going to put her into anything, then you have to have somebody voice her. Can't because I sure as hell don't want it to be AI. I want an actual human voicing that. So in this instance, if they were to do something in the sequel trilogy era, something animated or a game or something where they would need voicing, I think that she would be an awesome choice to do to do that era. Another person who's voiced that era is Carolyn Hennessy. She does a wonderful job at it, but I think Gates would be a stellar choice as well.
I would love Gates just to be in the Star Wars universe, period. Right? I think, for the longest time, I feel actors were kind of stuck to stay in a certain fandom. Yeah. And not even for just Star Wars or Star Trek or even Marvel and DC. And Like it's like,
Yeah.
oh well, you did Star Trek, so you're only Star Trek, right? So
Right.
that's why I think seeing her do Marvel, or even Patrick Stewart had done Marvel, right? It really expands just what they can do. Like I don't see X-Men and see Patrick Stewart playing Charles Xavier. I don't see Captain Picard. I see Charles Xavier, which is a very hard thing to do when you're playing an iconic character. You know, there was
Right.
always that typecast like Christopher Reeve went through when he was Superman, you know, and it was very hard to get these different roles. But there was this movie, oh dear, if I can try and remember this, my mom is going to kill me if I can't remember. I want to say Time After Time, but that's a
What's
that's a song.
I know
That's a
I know
song.
which one you're talking about.
Yes,
Um,
and oh, shoot, and it had the medicine woman,
yep.
Jane Seymour in it. Phenomenal movie, phenomenal movie,
Somewhere in Time.
and thank you, Somewhere in Time. I got time right. So like,
I typed in
why am I
Christopher Reeve Mackinac Island because I'm from Michigan and that film
okay?
was filmed in Mackinac Island. That's one of the,
Okay, okay. So it was a wonderful film that not many people know about, that you can be like, he separated himself from the Superman cape. Okay. I think this movie came out in 84 or something like that. But him and Jane became extraordinary friends. Like she named one of her twins after him. And it's just a brilliant movie. They played off of each other so well. I recommend it completely. But as like I was saying earlier, as time has gone on, these actors have been able to just showcase what they can do,
right.
especially stage actors. They have to know to do 10 million different things because they have to play 10 million different characters. And also
Absolutely.
when they're doing a live version of these plays every night, they have to do 10 million different versions of that play. So something, you know, with like Patrick being in the Shakespeare, Royal Shakespeare Company, and Gates doing clown, and, you know, learning how to just do different things with choreography, you really get different versions and you really get new stuff, even though it's an older character, right? We've had Superman for 70 plus years, right?
Right.
80
Yeah.
years, right? Almost. And it's nice to actually get a different version of it. As much as I know some people are like, can we get new stuff? It's nice to have a nostalgia, nice, different take on these things. That's why I think X-Men 97 just, they nailed it. They completely nailed it when it came to telling the stories of these characters. So I went on a tangent a little bit there. I'm very passionate about
That's okay. That's okay.
Now I do want to mention real fast before we continue. I wanted to talk about real fast Investigates, which of course is Gates McFadden's podcast. She is having a season 3. She had already started recording with a couple of her guests, and so far from what we know, she's going to have Todd Stashwick, Michelle Hurd, Sonequa Martin Green, and David Ajala. And so I'm really excited about the David one because I hadn't seen Discovery. I decided to watch a few episodes from the final season just to kind of see what was going on, and it just so happened to be a TNG flashback, which I got excited for. But David was cool. I liked Booker. I thought he was a pretty awesome character. But I've met Todd. Todd is fantastic. He's great. So I know that interview is going to be great. I've been a fan of Michelle Hurd's for the longest time. Since she was on Bones, and I'm a huge Bones fan. And of course, I didn't know Sonequa very much in The Walking Dead because I kind of trailed off from the show, but I know she was fantastic and she was great in Discovery. So I'm really looking forward to season 3 of Investigates. Now, have you listened to Gates McFadden's podcast?
I have. There was I listened to a couple. She did one with John Billingsley. I listened to that before I had John on my show. and there was a couple others that were ones that I was hoping to get on the show that I haven't gotten on the show yet, but I'm working on those. Where I was like, oh, these ones might be fun to get. But yeah, so I have listened to a few episodes, and I love the fact that most of the podcasts that I listen to, if I'm listening to something in my free time, is because it's a very relaxed conversation. It's just, and especially when it's something, when she's talking to somebody else, Star Trek, where they're able to talk and they start talking about things that happened on set. And it's not necessarily that they're spilling the tea, so to speak, but they're just having a fun chat about things that happened. And, oh, how did you
Right.
like working with this person and or that person, and what did you think about this or that? And I find those conversations for myself, I think that those are um, really kind of cool, because it's a laid back conversation, and I don't feel like
Right.
any of her conversations are forced. And I think
Right.
that's probably maybe the best um uh credit I can give to somebody's podcast, is that when I'm watching or listening rather, I don't ever feel like um it's a forced conversation. Like
Mhm.
another one was the Anson Mount episode. I like that one. Um
Mhm.
clearly Anson hasn't been on my show yet. Anson, you can join me anytime. Uh
Plug.
and yeah, exactly. More like beg. Uh
Big.
uh but yeah, and the Jack Quaid interview was pretty good, because Jack is
Yeah.
just Jack, and he's a lot of
I
fun.
love Tawny's interview.
Mm-hmm.
That was lots of fun. They've grown to have this really great friendship, these two. I remember, I believe, oh, did it come out yet? I think it did. So I believe Those Old Scientists had already come out before Vegas. And so I remember I was in line for Jonathan Frakes to get my poster signed. And here comes Tawny, just
Mm-hmm.
walking up, saying hello, because that's what you do in Vegas. All the actors are just walking around and you're rubbing elbows with them. And I'm like a foot away from her because everything was kind of tight. And he was saying hi. Well, Gates saw her coming. She left her table, walked over, and was like, oh, no, no, no. She's mine. Like all of a sudden, Jonathan and Gates were fighting over Tawny. Like, who's better friend? Like, no, she's my best friend. No, she's my best friend. And I'm just watching this unfold. And I was like, this is such a cool Star Trek family. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's like 13 different shows. I don't know how many different movies. It's like we're at 910 episodes and we have all these actors and they're just one big happy family. It was just it's so cool to see that, even when you're in the casino or at the bar and they're just hanging out with each other and chatting. You're just kind of watching, you're like, oh, that's so lovely. I love that. But yeah, it was loads of fun. I really did like Will Wheaton's episode. He's very
Yeah.
comfortable with Grates, right? That's his space mom.
Right.
And it was like hearing a mother-son conversation because we didn't get any of that in TNG between Wesley and Beverly. So it was a fresh air. But I think for them, he was very open, he was very raw,
Mm-hmm.
and she was just there for him, like any
Mm-hmm.
mother would. So yeah, I really did enjoy that.
Well,
Um,
that
but
makes sense because of Will's background, his own
yeah.
personal life, and what he went through with his own
Mhm.
parents. I mean, he identifies with Frakes as that's basically his dad. He
That's his
looks he
dad.
looked up he looks up to Jonathan Frakes
Yeah,
as his
Frakes
dad.
and Gates are his parents,
Oh,
for
for
sure.
sure, for sure.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I have such high respect for Will Wheaton because
He's a
of how
cool dude.
open, yeah, how open he
Mm-hmm.
has been, especially these last like 10 whatever years with his blog. He's been very open about his childhood. And, I remember he did the talk and it was my mind's blanking. Chris O'Donnell.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris O'Donnell. Yeah. And he's like, man, I'm sorry. he was just apologizing. And Will's like, "Why are you apologizing?" He's like, "I should have known you were going through that when we were doing Stand By Me." And Will just
Oh, that
he
was
had
Jerry
the
O'Donnell. Jerry
Jerry
O'Connell.
O'Donnell. So I knew I said it wrong. Jerry, it was he had the best response where he was all like, "Thank you for that, but you were 11."
Yeah, you were a kid too.
He was like, "You were a
Yeah.
kid." He's like,
Yeah.
"And I'm very good at hiding it." And it's true. Any child
Yeah.
that's going through that kind of abuse, they're very good at hiding it. Not even
Yeah.
the adults, not even the TNG cast didn't even know that this was happening. They're like, "Yeah, we saw his parents on, on the set and
Mhm.
everything. We just thought everything was fine and it
Yeah.
wasn't." So and I think it's very therapeutic for Will to be able to be open about all of that stuff. And I
Yeah,
find it
absolutely.
just inspiring, in that aspect. So, yeah,
One of
I
yeah,
think
one of the
it
things I
was
one of the things I appreciated most about him when I had a chance to talk with Will was that so he came on our show during the time he was doing his book tour for Still Just a Geek.
Mhm.
And now the interesting thing about that book is that it was basically the first book just being reprinted, but he had put annotations in, he had made notes about things that had happened, comments and things were that he put in there, even about castmates
Mhm.
that were pretty rude in a couple of them, and he acknowledges that. The thing is,
Yeah.
I thought that was great about that is that I think a lot of people would have tried to take those things out, or they would have, tried to cover them up in some way so that, oh yeah, well, that's just not, he acknowledged it. B, he steered into the skid, and he talked about him at length, and just like, yeah, he said uh things about the actress whose name I always screw up, so I'm not going to say it, but it was she played Troy, uh,
Oh,
Mariana
Marina
Sirtis.
Sirtis.
Yeah, there it is, Marina. There
Marina
we go.
Sirtis, yeah.
Yeah, I always want to say Mariana, which I know that's wrong. But so
Marina, yeah. I mean,
Marina,
I
yeah,
could say her name, but I can't say Jamie.
it's fair enough. But he made some comments about her in the first book, and he went back and he has notations in the second book. The second version of the book about why that was inappropriate and why it was wrong, and he's
Mhm.
owning up to it. And so I have more respect for somebody who because we're all human, we're all going to say and do things that we shouldn't. But I have more
Mhm.
respect for someone like that when they are able to say, "This is what I did. This is where I screwed up, and this is why I'm owning it." And I love that about him, and that always made a really big impression on me, especially during the course of our conversation. Is just a couple different times he pointed to some of the stuff that like he's where I was like, "Yeah, you could have left that out, and nobody probably would have been any of the wiser."
Mhm.
Unless they had read the first book,
Right.
and memorized it clearly. But
Mhm.
there was a lot of stuff in there where he was, a young 20-year-old man, and he says, not that that's an excuse, but that's where my mind was, and that's what I was doing, and I said and did a lot of things I shouldn't have said and did. So,
Yeah.
but I
Like you
respected that,
said,
and I think it's cool.
yeah, and like you said, he was owning up to it. I mean, I think, for me, I've done the same thing. Like, I'm owning up to all the mistakes that I've made, and
Well,
like
sure, it's part of
that
being human.
I'm doing my best I can to be a better person. And I've always even said that I feel like I learned that from Gates because,
Mhm,
like her character, she was always this kind, compassionate person and a single mom. And I related to that. And even with Will Wheaton, my dad wasn't around.
mhm,
And it's a very lonely feeling, or it's hard to know that you have a parent that doesn't care for you. Right? Because then you start
mhm.
thinking there's something wrong with you, and you have to go through a lot to realize it's not me, So
It wasn't
I
me, it was him. He's a
yeah,
jerk.
e
I get that.
exactly.
I know
And,
that one.
I have a little bit better relationship with my dad because I got older. We kind of figured it out, but, it's not like a real father-daughter relationship, and that's okay.
Mhm,
That's just how it is.
part of it.
So, yeah, exactly, and I think Will doing that, I think probably inspired a lot of people to own up to not only their mistakes, but also to be open about all that they've gone through. And so
Exactly.
it's so refreshing to see. And I do love your interview with Will Wheaton. If you guys have not seen it, please go find it on FSF Popcast's YouTube page. It's there. It's great. It's also on all your Spotify or Apple, wherever you want to listen, but loads of fun. I do remember the moon pie part, and you lost your mind, Tim.
Oh, that was perfect. That was exactly what I needed at that moment.
Oh,
like,
man.
He's gotta say it. He's gotta say it. And he's like, "Hello, moon pie." I'm like,
Moon pie. And you're like, that's it. I'm done. Bye.
Yeah, I'm done. We can shut this thing down. That's all I needed to hear.
That's all we needed to hear. So
and done.
And done. Now, do you have any last comments about Mother Ascani? So before we get close to ending here, do you have any comments about how you think season 2 is going to play out?
I think we're gonna spend a lot of time in the alternate world that we're in, world 811. That's where she's at. So I'm looking forward to seeing, because in the comics, Mother Ascani is Rachel Summers. She's the daughter of those two, right. And so Nathan would be her little brother. Mm-hmm. And so I am very curious to see how that all plays out, how that gets discussed, if it's talked about that, hey, in this world I'm your child, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot there to unpack. So I'm curious if they're going to address it, or if they're going to kind of like do-si-do around it and leave that for another season. And right. But that's to me is one of the bigger things going in this. So the two things that I'm looking forward to in season 2 is how they handle that whole alternate world situation with a young Nathan, instead of Nathan seeing him in season 1 as Cable, mm-hmm. But seeing him as a young Nathan at the end of the season. And 2, right. Because it's a comic book and no one's ever really dead. God damn it, bring me back my Gambit. So
I think it's going to happen. Just
I'm hoping
in a different way.
And in one final parting shot, I figured out who my comic book guy was. Now, I said he was like Batman, and there's reason for that. Is because he was on Dark Horse Comics. It's this guy. His name was just X.
Oh, yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, and he was, for my parents, a little violent, and because he had no problem with killing the bad guy. And whether it was with his fists, a sword, the dueling 45s that he had strapped to his hips, or the chains that he would just wrap around somebody's neck. So
so he was a Dexter.
Yeah, and I wasn't allowed to read him at home, but that didn't apply at my buddy's house where that comic book got to live. And so I read that over there.
Oh my gosh. Well, at least we figured it out. Now you can sleep soundly tonight.
This was bugging the crap out of me. So
you've been investigating, no pun intended, this whole time.
Investigates, yes. I was having my own version of Investigates over here.
Oh man.
But I knew that he, because he works at night, and I knew he's like Batman like, and that's why I went to Nighthawk, and I'm like, that's not right. And I knew it was Dark Horse Comics. I just had to go find it. I finally found it. But so there's that.
That's funny. Oh man. Well, at least we figured out the mystery.
We solved the mystery.
We solved the mystery. And of course, I am here to let you know next episode, which you guys already know, it is my interview with John Billingsley that I am calling A Night with Flocks. I have a lot of investigating to do because I haven't seen one episode of Enterprise, but that's fine. John's cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really excited, guys. If you guys have any questions for John, please either hit me up on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, or you can also just email me at crusherconvo@gmail.com. I know he would love to hear your comments. I know he would love to hear your questions. I really want to try and tap into the Gates McFadden energy and make it more conversational. The only interview I've ever done was with Larry Nemechek, and I think I kind of did that a little bit. I had some questions, but we had a good conversation. So I'm really excited about this. But I also wanted to throw in my next episode, which is happening 2 weeks after this one, and it is an interview with Dayton Ward. So this one is called The Ward of Star Trek because I feel like Dayton knows his stuff, right? And I love his books. We have amazing authors in the Star Trek universe. I cannot wait to talk to Dayton about his work and about his love for Star Trek. I met him in Salt Lake. We talked for like 30 minutes, and he has a lot of future. So it's super exciting about this. This one is going to be dropping, I believe, on the 19th. And so, yeah, I cannot wait to have this interview with him. So what is that? Kirk Fute manual.
The Kirk
Oh.
Manual by Dayton Ward. I had him sign it for.
Oh, nice. Do the food.
Do the food. Live long and prosper.
Do
Dayton's
the
a trip.
food. He's really a great guy. Like I said, I talked to him for like 30 minutes, and because I feel like him and James and David, they all did Coda, like the ending of that universe, fantastic. And I remember I was like, "You done amazing. I can't believe this." And Beverly Crusher, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so happy." Because you never know. Like we're going through right now with Star Wars fandom, you piss people off really easily if you go off a little bit on
You're breaking the lore.
Yeah, exactly. So he was very excited to hear that, especially for the Beverly Crusher fans. I mean, everyone, I don't know any Crusher fan that does not love Coda, and it's crushing because there's some scenes in there that it's a bit much. But anyways, but you have had the opportunity to talk to Dayton and John.
Right.
So you got any advice for me? Help me out.
With John, just John's a wind-up doll. You just kind of wind him up, point him in the right direction, let him go. He is unhinged in all the most beautiful of ways. And I adore John Billingsley. He's just he's easy to adore. Let's put it that way.
Right.
The more I talked with him, the more I was like, this guy's fantastic. And yeah, you just want to spend more time with him. He's just that easy to get along with.
Yeah.
And then Dayton has a very sharp wit, very good sense of humor, and he's honestly very easy to talk to. So for you getting more into interviews, those are two perfect entries for you, because John is going to help carry the load, and Dayton's going to give you some phenomenal responses. So yeah,
no pressure.
No pressure for you. But yeah, I think they'll both do a good job for you. And yeah, they're just tons of fun. And you're absolutely right about Dayton. He knows his stuff. He knows Star Trek inside, out, up, down, right, left. And there's not anything that you can talk about. I don't think you're going to stump him if you tried.
I would love for Dayton and Larry to have an interview together.
Right? A Trek off.
Yeah, like have Dayton go on Larry's show. That would just be amazing. We would all just be watching this happen and them talking about all the different Star Trek, lore or canon or not canon or whatever you want to talk about.
Absolutely.
To make people's heads spin. But yeah, I'm excited. And like I said, John's episode is going to drop on July 5th, and then Dayton's is going to drop on the 19th. So, of course,
perfect.
If you want to have questions for John, please just email me, send me a DM, whatever you want to do, a tweet, whatever, and we'll get those questions in. Now, of course, like I said, I am not only on here, as you can see. Please subscribe and like this video, and you can find all of my videos, all of my shorts, anything you want, anything Beverly Crusher, that is what's here. But you could also find me on Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, anywhere, you love to hear your favorite podcasts. I have a TeePublic store, as you saw my lovely little hat here is from. You can buy me a coffee where you can scan that barcode on that top right corner. And of course, you can find all my information on my website at crusherconvo.com. And of course, if you do love all of the stuff that I am, all the content I am dropping, just hit me up over on Instagram and Threads at Crusher Convo, and I'll entertain you with my videos and funny little reels and fun facts. And yeah, I have lots of fun with that kind of stuff. So now, Tim, do you have
Yes.
anything to plug in? Do you got anything going on over at FSF?
Well, we are getting ready for every September. Now, I know it's only June, but we start prepping for this early. For the last 3 years, at least, we have been part of the Monroe. It used to be Pop Fest. Now it's the Monroe Comic Con in Monroe, Michigan. And we've helped promote the show, promote the Comic Con. We've helped run the panels in the panel room, along with our really good buddies from the Three Geeks podcast and the PVD cast. And so between the three of us, our three pods, we kind of run the panel room, and we interview people coming up for that. This year, one of the ones that I'm trying desperately to get on the show to promote the Comic-Con is Clint Howard, who's coming to Monroe. And they always have, so he's got got a lot of Star Trek cred for his early days in TOS, and
all the way up to Strange New Worlds. Yeah,
he's got all kinds of cred out there in the business. But yeah, I'd like to be able to talk with Clint. That'd be really cool. But we have a couple of interviews booked for that, and we have, well, honestly, we've got some really cool interviews coming up. We just interviewed, and trying to remember pulling up my list right now because my brain has been talked about it no worky. But we just recently had Meredith Salinger, who's the voice of Barriss Offee, on the show from Star Wars. And one of the things that I think that your audience will be in particular will be interested in is that next month in July, we're interviewing Aaron Waltke from Star Trek Prodigy. He's one of the writers and producers of the show. And
at Good Aaron.
Yeah, at Good Aaron on most social media. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. I've been wanting to talk to him for a while because honestly, Star Trek Prodigy is the first thing that I watched, and it kind of got me interested. And I was like, well, if I like this, I might like Strange New Worlds. And then I watched Strange New Worlds, which I went back and watched TOS, and then I had enough of Captain Kirk and went to Next Generation,
which is far better.
Yeah.
Not to put down the original series, but TNG's by heart.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where I came in at, and so I really enjoyed Prodigy because I looked at it, I was like, well, I adore Star Wars Clone Wars, and I thought, well, if I can love an animated series that much for Star Wars, maybe an animated series might help me with Star Trek. And I loved the first season of Prodigy, and of course Lower Decks is Lower Decks, and that has nothing to do with Prodigy, but it's amazing. And then those animated series are one of the things that helped me go, okay, well, Star Trek's not so bad, let's check out Strange New Worlds. And then I freaking love that show.
Right.
I'm straight up addicted to Strange New Worlds. So
so come on, SML, let's get on the show.
Exactly. Please.
Hey, get Gates McFadden. She's now doing Marvel and her podcast. You could do it. I have faith in you, Tim.
I have great hopes that I'll be able to get them on the show. But yeah, so we've had a couple of really cool interviews. I'm working on a couple. I don't want to say who they are because until they're finalized, I don't want to say this person's coming on the show and then have them not be
right.
But yeah, a couple of really cool ones that have their toes in the Trekkerverse. So if that happens, we'll see. But yeah,
we'll see.
We've always got something for everyone over on FSF Popcast. We've got a ton of Star Trek interviews. So definitely something your audience would, I think, enjoy and look forward to.
I'm definitely excited about your interview with Aaron. Every time I make a comment about Beverly Crusher, because he brought Beverly back into Star Trek with the episode Kobayashi. And so I was we're like, oh, thank you, well, and the brothers, of course. And it was just, I keep actually like, geez, I wonder if Beverly would show up here, because in this time period where Prodigy is, Beverly's like has like a toddler Jack, and she's already out on her own. And I'm all like,
Mhm.
is there any way we might see it? And he just does responses of like the eye emoji,
Mhm.
like just kind of looking over. I'm like, what does that mean?
Means maybe, maybe not.
And
Wait
he's
and
just
see.
like,
Good luck.
watch season 2. And I'm like, what? So I don't want to get my hopes up,
Which
but I'm getting my hopes up.
which releases in just a couple days.
I know. I'm really
All
excited.
on
And I'm off.
Netflix.
So I'm gonna be binge watching that show. So yeah. Super excited. But yeah, thank you, Tim, though, for coming on. It
Thank
is so
you.
much fun. Thank you for being such a huge support for Crusher Convo. And yeah, if you guys love all the nerdy stuff, go hit their YouTube. They got amazing content over there.
Thank you. We try.
And of course, Kathleen, which is his other, well, out of the trio, right? There's 3 of you in
Well, yeah. We also have Ben. So
yeah.
uh,
So
and
she's
sometimes
a third of it.
John. He's our Y in the vowel system. It's Tim, Kathleen, and Ben, and sometimes John.
That makes sense. But yeah, loads of fun. You guys hit them up over there. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you to everyone who has been watching this whole time. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, just hit us up. But yeah, thanks so much. Bye.
Crusher out.